Okay, good afternoon everyone and welcome to this afternoon's Graduate Apprenticeships webinar. Today we're going to hear from Dr. Graham Bowles, who is the Programme Director for our Construction and Built Environment Programme. We're also delighted to have guest speakers from one of our employer partners today, Arcadis. You're going to hear from Craig Kekkerin, who's one of the GA mentors at Arcadis, and also Danielle Fallon, an actual GA student. And they're going to give us their perspective on graduate apprenticeships. Now, before I hand over to Graham, I'll just cover off some quick housekeeping. You'll have noticed that we've started recording, so today's session will be recorded. And as everybody's doing so far, thank you very much. It'd be great if you just, during the presentation, just keep your mics on mute and keep the cameras switched off. That'd be fantastic. Thank you. Now, at the end of the presentations, we'd love to hear your questions or ask questions of either Graham or Craig or Danielle. So you can either raise your hand and ask a question verbally, or please feel free to use the chat function even as we go through the presentations. We'll take a note of those and we'll get to them at the end. So without any further ado, I am going to hand over to Graham.
Okay, thanks, David. And yeah, let me just add my welcome to this afternoon's webinar. I'm Graham Bowles, and I'm the programme leader for the Graduate Apprenticeship in Construction in the Built Environment, which is an honours degree programme introduced in the relatively recent past at Heriot-Watt University. As well as an academic, I'm also a chartered surveyor and an APC assessor. So I've got a kind of understanding and sort of rounded view of competency-based assessment, which is what a lot of this programme is all about. So why Heriot-Watt University? Well, the Graduate Apprenticeship programme is relatively new, and that's the case right across the sector in Scotland. So if we rewind 3 years ago, Heriot-Watt University and a number of other universities in Scotland, based on the funding from Scottish Government and Skills Development Scotland, developed the Graduate Apprenticeship programme, which was responding to a need for industry-based apprentices to become degree-level educated and provide to fill a skills gap. So what I'm going to do is, within a few slides, just tell you a little bit about the apprenticeship programme, a little bit about its philosophy, where it's coming from, the structure, what it involves in terms of, very briefly, employer involvement and university involvement, working in partnership, and talk a little bit about the nuts and bolts of how it operates. And then, as David said, we're joined by an employer, by a mentor, which is really valuable to give us that industry perspective on the programme. And I'm also delighted to say that one of our apprentices is also here to share her experiences so far on the programme. So the programme is relatively new. We've yet to have our first cohort of graduates. That will happen in the summer of next year. But we have been providing graduate level and postgraduate level built environment related education for a long time in the university. We were the first university to offer degree programmes in building in the UK. And we are consistently recognised for the quality of our full-time campus-based degree programmes in quantity surveying and construction project management. So you can see there from our league table positions, we come from a strong position, and we consistently are in the top in the UK or the top 5 in the UK. So that's helped shape our graduate apprenticeship programme, and it builds very strongly on that existing experience and heritage. I would just add that the apprenticeship programme is also, as you can see there from the badge, accredited by the RICS in the same way that all our campus-based programmes are. So industry partnerships, professional relationships have always been really important to us as a university. So next slide, David. And we do come from a position of a traditional full-time honours degree programme from a number of years ago, but we have been sort of moving towards and evolving in recent years towards where we are now, in fact, with the graduate apprenticeship programme. And that's in response to changing industry expectations, changing student expectations, and the role of universities in providing learning and education. So a number of years ago, we introduced a scheme, the Culture of External Mentoring Scheme, to bring in practitioners, to bring in industry-based mentors to partner with our students in year 3 and to essentially get them graduate ready, get them transitioned into industry, get them exposed to business, and develop their more rounded skills, not just their academic and technical competencies. So we developed that further with a part-time study option about 5 years ago, and allowed our 3rd and 4th year students to take the degree level study on a part-time basis by splitting work and study. So we found that more and more of our students were gaining part-time employment, but they were trying to accommodate that within the constraints of a full-time degree programme. So recognising this, we developed the part-time options. And where we've got to now, more recently, this apprentice route, it's a sort of natural progression for us at the university. So the graduate apprenticeship programme came along at the right time. It provides an alternative to the traditional degree experience, and it is a sort of natural evolution of our strong links and our growing integration with industry and professional partners. So to say something about what's in that programme, what's in the key themes that we would cover, well, in common with our undergraduate programmes on campus, we are drawing on the same curriculum that the quantity surveying and the construction project management students will follow, but we're doing that in a way that uses the best of industry and work-based experience and assessment together with the traditional university experience. So the overall aim is to provide a work-based learning programme to develop the management, the business and the technical skills of employees. And what we encourage our apprentices, as we do our full-time students, to do is to continue their professional development towards chartered surveyor status. And that would be either down the quantity surveying pathway or the project management pathway, depending on the apprentice role within the organisation, depending on their aspirations and the aspirations and ambitions of the employer as well. So there's flexibility in terms of professional pathway to suit the circumstances of the employer and the apprentice. But the key themes that we would cover in all of our programmes through both the work-based learning, that experience which is gained in industry, and also the traditional curriculum, is what you'd expect to find in many degree programmes of this nature: technology, sustainability, IT skills, cost management, procurement, and business management. So that range of technical and business skills that make our students and our apprentices valuable to employers in the workplace. That's our aim, that's our objective with all of our graduates and apprentices. That's what we're trying to achieve. Let me just say something about the programme structure. Now, the thing about the apprenticeship that sets itself apart from a traditional part-time study, where a student is studying part-time at university but is also employed part-time in industry. That would take a number of years longer than the traditional structure takes. But the advantage of the apprenticeship is that it's a 4-year programme. So the apprentice is full-time employed, they're working in industry, they're gaining experience which contributes towards their learning outcomes, the course outcomes, and the degree outcomes. And that allows us to get an apprentice through the programme in exactly the same time frame as a full-time campus-based student. So the structure of the programme each year looks pretty similar. So we can see year 1 and years 2 here. The titles that we have are the titles of the individual courses. Each one is worth 15 credits and contributes towards the progression for that year. But what we have is a number of traditional university taught and assessed courses. So our apprentices are in class with our full-time students, getting the same university experience as the full-time students, and are assessed on the same basis for 4 of the courses. So we can see that in the semester 1 and the semester 2 boxes of the year 1 and the year 2 programme structure. But below that, where it departs from the traditional course, is what's tagged as the work-based learning courses. So we can see here on year 1, there are 4 work-based learning courses to complement the 4 university courses: construction modelling, cost control principles, global challenges, construction technology within the first year. These have the same credit weighting as the university course, but they're achieved in the workplace through work-based learning. And that's where our partnership with industry becomes more valuable. It becomes essential to help the development of the apprentice in a way which allows them to meet the degree level outcomes, develops them in all of their technical and transferable skills, but complements that with the workplace experience. So year 1, year 2, the structure looks the same. There is the traditional university calendar, semester 1 and semester 2. But the work-based learning courses, there is a much greater degree of flexibility. These happen across the academic year, and that allows us to make sure apprentices, within the constraints and within the circumstances of their own environment, can meet all of the course requirements across that academic year. So part of the role is to plan with the apprentice and with the mentor how to actually achieve that experience in a timely way and to the right level and the right quality to allow them to progress on to the next year. So as well as the traditional semester 1, semester 2 that the university courses follow, that the campus-based students follow, the apprenticeship is year-round. So we have this concept of semester 3, where there are no classes operating, that there's no classes over the summer, but there is still learning and there is still development and there is still interaction with the university to make sure that all of that experience that's gained in industry can be used and can contribute towards their degree programme portfolios. So that's why we see in semester 3 work-based learning support as a heading there. So it's not prescribed curriculum, but it allows time and space to ensure that the work-based learning is achieved over the year. So that's year 1 and year 2. The format is similar, the structure is the same as far as the calendar is concerned. Year 3 and year 4 look very similar. One of the advantages of this is that familiarisation with the process, familiarisation with the portfolio requirements develops and should allow continuous improvement and improving performance throughout the years for apprentices. So year 3 looks identical other than the titles for the module, the course titles. It looks identical to year 1, year 2. Year 4 looks slightly different in that there appears to be fewer work-based learning courses. But in fact, what we have is larger double credit weighted courses within the design project and the dissertation, the research dissertation for final year apprentices. And that's very much integral part of the honours degree year. And the design project in the dissertation allows further tailoring of the apprentice experience towards what would be meaningful and useful within the workplace context. So that's the 4 years of the degree structure. The point of entry onto that 4-year programme depends on the experience and the qualifications of individual apprentices. So if we move on to the next slide. Oh, if we back up one, thanks, David. So just to say something about the key features of the structure, very briefly, that was a format for years 1 to years 4. These equate to the campus-based traditional degree level Scottish credit and qualification levels. Each year is worth 120 credits, and to move to the subsequent year, you achieve all the credits for that year, and then move through and move up a level till we get to the honours year for the programme. So most of our apprentices will join us at year 1, but we do have a significant number of apprentices join us in year 2, and exceptionally actually in year 3, given the correct level of qualifications and experience at entry point. But at the point of graduation, apprentices are well on their way to developing their career towards chartered status with the RICS. And we encourage that from for all of our students and apprentices, in fact, because we know that professional qualification, professional recognition is in the interests of apprentices, graduates, and employers. And we envisage the alternative pathways being the same as they are for our campus-based students, either qualifying through the QS and construction route or qualifying through the project management route. And again, that depends on the ambitions and the interests and how the job role and how the career develops, for the apprentice within the workplace. And if we look at the range and the diversity of apprentices we have, they are wide and they are diverse. We have people working for large multidisciplinary international consultancies like Arcadis, and we have people working for contractors. We have people working for small organisations, regional organisations and contractors, as well as the nationals and the internationals. So it's a broad church, it's a diverse portfolio, and the framework is sufficiently broad to accommodate all of these different pathways and the range of experiences that we expect our apprentices to get to allow them to meet the learning outcomes of the programme. So that's the key features of the structure itself. And just to follow on from that, and to underline a few points that I've made here and add in a few more, the breakdown over the 4 years is about 50% of the learning is work-based, happens with the employer, and it's why it's key to have that good partnership with the employers, because they are absolutely vital in this learning experience. And the other 50% is that traditional university study, attending lectures, attending workshops, tutorials, interacting with other students, and being assessed in the same way that the campus-based students are, either by examination or by coursework. So the model looks like day release. It looks like traditional part-time day release, with apprentices spending 1 day per week at the university and 4 days in the workplace. But the key difference is that 4 days in the workplace is very much part of their university learning. And the recording of that, the logging of it, the reflecting on the learning, all goes into the portfolio, which is assessed at the end of the year. So apprentices develop and maintain portfolios for each of the work-based learning courses and build up a bank of evidence that demonstrates that learning, that allows that assessment process to take place on the same footing as all degree level assessment takes place. Critical reflection is part of that. So apprentices develop the skills and the ability to reflect critically on their own learning and their own organisation, and in that sense will develop as employees to contribute more effectively to the workplace and to their role, and that is part and parcel of the whole graduate apprenticeship ambition. So it's all about learning outcomes for the work-based learning courses. It's not a prescribed curriculum that they're following, but we do need to make sure, and we do work together to ensure that the experiences, the activities in the workplace, the learning is there to meet these outcomes. And where there are gaps, or where it's not so evident that workplace learning will meet some course requirements, we can look at how to achieve that either through the workplace in different means, or supplement it with some of the more traditional reading, learning, and reflection. So for each of the work-based learning courses, there is a final submission of each of the 4 portfolios at the end of each academic year. But we want to make sure that there is timely progress throughout the year towards these. And as I mentioned earlier, advanced entry is possible at year 2, or exceptionally year 3 for suitably qualified apprentices. So next slide. So just to say something about the apprentices' development, we look to draw up an individual learning agreement at the start of the process, which is essentially about planning in partnership with the employer, with the mentor and apprentices each year, how that experiential learning can be achieved, how it can be documented, and how it can develop in a way which meets the course and the programme requirements. Every apprentice is assigned a personal tutor. So as well as being programme leader, I'm very much connected to the day-to-day operation of the programme, and I'm a personal tutor for many of the apprentices. And our role is to be that link at the university, to provide both academic and pastoral support for all on and off campus aspects of the apprenticeship. So key to this is good communication, a good relationship between apprentice, employer, and university tutor. And as I did mention earlier, assessment of all the campus-based, the non-work-based learning courses is the traditional university approach of examination, coursework, or a combination of both in some individual courses. Okay, so that's all I wanted to say in terms of presenting some of the features of the programme, some of the mechanics of how it operates, the format, And I'm offering my perspective as a program leader and as a tutor. But I think with this afternoon's session, one of the the very valuable things that we've got is to have employer and apprentice representation to give that balance of perspective. So having said that, I'll be happy to pick up questions later on in any of this, but I'll hand over to Craig, I think, who's going to say a little bit about the employer's perspective.
Thanks very much, Graham. I think obviously as I go through that, I think there's an echo, Graham, if you can mute.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go through this with Danielle as well. She's the apprentice going through it, so I think we can bounce off of each other as we go through it. So if you can just skip onto the next slide, please. Yeah, so just a background to myself. I've been employed by Arcadis for over 13 years, straight from high school, got a job and did university part-time. This was obviously before the apprenticeship courses came into play. So my part-time studies was over 6 years because it took me a year and a half to do a year's course due to the course structure. So that's where I was at. And then after that, I was seeking to get chartered with the RICS, which took me 3 years. And I'm currently the RICS Matrix Chair for Edinburgh. So I'm responsible for trying to put on as many CPD events and try and engage with the RICS members as much as possible to support them through their career as well. As Graham's kind of touched on, I'm a mentor just now for Danielle, who's currently undertaking the Heriot-Watt Apprenticeship course. She's in second year now, so I've got a good year under our belt about how the first year went, and also impacting on that into the second year to see how we can refine that and address any of the concerns that Danielle may have had as well. So I'm aware of the kind of requirements of how we should really be supporting apprenticeships. I've been in the position myself of being on the part-time course straight from high school, where I had no prior knowledge about the construction industry, and instances where I felt like I was isolated and didn't have much support with my colleagues, whether they're too busy with workload, didn't have enough time to explain stuff properly to me. And then same with my chartership, going through my APC process about just trying to get chartered, and there was nobody in the business at the time who had just recently been chartered that I could kind of talk to and just get an understanding of what to do and how I should steer my time into to benefit it the most. So I'm aware of the stress that it goes through graduates, especially when they're studying and working at the same time. So hopefully in the just presentation I can kind of touch on that. I don't know if you want to just kind of come in, Danielle, and maybe just a quick introduction about yourself.
Yeah, of course. I'm Danielle. I'm an assistant project manager. Like Craig, I've also been with Arcadis for just over 12 years now. I started Arcadis as a personal assistant, and over the course of many years, I had a number of roles in the business before I, in 2018, progressed into a sort of technical role and started as an assistant project manager. And that followed with last year starting the graduate apprenticeship course at Heriot-Watt. So I'm now in the second year of this course. Since commencing, I guess I've had, as Craig says in his slides, a range of experience to reflect on the coursework. I've been lucky enough to have the buy-in from those in the business that are responsible for project resourcing to ensure that my project exposure has been sort of adapted to suit the learning outcomes of each course. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
Perfect. Well, I'll go through the next slide if that's okay, and then if you want to jump in at all, Danielle, or I'll try and kind of advise if you can maybe feed into your experience as well. But yeah,
of course,
so
no problem.
Yeah, first off, our kind of Arcadis Expectations. As I said, I've undertaken part-time studies with university on day release basis, so I'm aware of being an inexperienced candidate and trying to go through an apprenticeship course where a lot of it's work-based learning. Obviously, you need to. I need to find the time with Danielle to explain aspects that aren't really outlaid in the day-to-day modules when undertaken at the university. So we typically have I'd say two hours every Wednesday afternoon, where we look through Danielle's coursework, see what's required for that year or semester, and then look at how we can align addressing those kind of coursework questions to what she does on a day-to-day basis. And as Danielle kind of said, we're quite fortunate where we're in Arcadis, where it's quite a large firm, where we do have a range of projects all at different stages in the project timescale. So we can kind of chop and change between project experience to give Danielle that exposure. But that's something that we typically look for at the start of the course when she gets the coursework submissions. And I believe that Graham now or has sent out the future semesters coursework as well, so we can have that timeline set out right at the start, so we know what projects she's going to be inputting on. I think obviously the good thing about this as well is if it's very hard to obviously to find the experience on certain topics, because all projects are at a different level, and we even though we have a range of different projects on the go just now, it is hard to find some project specifics. So that it does give you the opportunity to at least research about the subject, talk to colleagues and understand what they do in a tender, for example, and then Danielle can expand on that and get the knowledge from that as well. So we know the level of support that's required from mentors as well as senior staff to apprentices. And as I kind of said, we're trying to give, originally for Danielle, I've worked with Danielle on a couple of projects, which I'll kind of touch on after, whereas Danielle was originally shadowing kind of the senior staff and then understanding what we do on a day-to-day basis. I think we have been quite fortunate that Danielle's kind of got the construction background knowledge of her previous roles, where she understands how meetings happen, what you would typically look for in a tender and stuff like that, because she's been part of that and helping stuff. So I think if you were to take on a graduate from high school, you may have that difficulty in letting them understand what they need to do. So you probably do have to have that a bit more attention to detail to be able to explain to them how they do it. It's obviously, I think Danielle's got a couple of colleagues who don't get the same level of support that we are, which is unfortunate, but I think it's been addressed where the mentors do really have to have a kind of a day-to-day understanding of what they're up to so that they can tailor them for that. And the coursework exams can be tailored towards work experience, as I've kind of mentioned. The good thing about this compared to what I did from a part-time course was, on the part-time course, I would imagine due to attendance sizes and caps of room size and everything, you would normally be merged with as a QS, sorry, I would be merged with project managers, building surveyors, sometimes architectural technologists, and the topics are quite broad to cover everyone. Whereas this one, you can get the coursework and you can actually tailor your experience towards that. So that I think it probably helps you, Danielle, as well, where you can actually write about what you do on a day-to-day basis, and it probably encourages you to kind of look into that in detail and in depth. Yeah, so as I said there as well, developing the skills specific to Arcadis projects and company processes. We're getting somebody that's not too much experience. They may have experience before they jump in, as Graham kind of touched on. They may have the experience to jump in and go through the accelerated route, but ultimately we are tailoring our colleagues to go through the processes that Arcadis take. So how we bid for work, how we undertake tenders, the documents we use to pull that together, the software used to undertake measures, and how we build up and collect the data from that is all being developed on what we do on a day-to-day basis. And the fact that the work experience on the course can be tailored towards that is helping us significantly as well. That the fact is, we're not getting the candidate to go to a lecture and understand what the university would do. We're training them up ourselves, and it saves a lot of time and efficiencies of both letting them understand how we do it as well. Other expectations we had before we kind of undertook is we'd get honest feedback from Heriot-Watt staff regarding the progress of each of the candidates. So we are getting that, as Graham said. I think he's, I can't remember the technical term that you used there, Graham, but the supervisor for the candidates. We catch up with Graham every 3 months probably, or every few months from there. which is great because we can actually understand the progress that Danielle and the colleagues are making, and it gives us an opportunity to kind of address any concerns or any aspects where they're maybe struggling or not getting the work experience that's required, which we can then impact on. Whereas before, on a traditional lecture or course, you would have set lectures where it's already structured and you can't really tailor it after that. You just have to kind of put up with it. Other expectations we had was obviously we're keen for Danielle and the other colleagues to achieve relevant experience, as well as undertake the coursework and get high grades, which I think is reflected in Danielle's first year, and hopefully in the second year as well once we get the coursework submitted. But it's most credit to Danielle, to be fair, rather than the mentorship that we put onto her. She's a very dedicated individual who spends the time in her own time away from work to do the research, ask the relevant questions, doesn't sit there and wait for us to kind of look into it. She's the one asking the questions, and that's what you really need to encourage your candidates and your students to do, as well. As I think it's a bit difficult from somebody from high school where they're in that mindset where they're still learning from teachers and still waiting to be told what to do. Once they get that mature, start asking the questions, and they're not scared to ask stupid questions, and no question is stupid because everyone's learning and everyone's been at that level before. So you need to try and encourage them to constantly ask questions, constantly pester you. It may get frustrating in the end, especially when you've got a workload that's through the roof, but you, as I said, you do need to have that dedicated time to get them through it. You can't just leave them to it and allow them to get on with it themselves, because they're either going to be wasted time, they're going to come back with information that's wrong and they'll have to do it again, and then their confidence starts getting hit, and then you find yourself back at square one, which is obviously not what you want to do. And then at the end of the course, we want to have a confident, dependable and critical thinking graduate, which I think Danielle is obviously showing in a lot of her coursework and a lot of her kind of projects that we're leaving with now. As I said, she kind of shadowed me on a couple of projects to start with, but thankfully I was able to take a step back, and Danielle was able to undertake a lot of it herself. And I wouldn't say getting thrown in the deep end, but allowing them to kind of undertake certain aspects of work, speak to clients, understand what they're submitting, and the comments they're receiving back, how they can address it, helps them grow as a person as well, so that they're confident in what they do and how their work kind of relates to what they're learning about as such. Before we move on to the next slide, is there anything that you wanted to touch on specifically, Danielle, for that, before we reflect on how we're actually getting on with the coursework so far?
No, nothing specific to do with that. The one good thing I would say is about the program is that, over the 4 years, whilst I'm gaining experience and learning at the same time, from my perspective, or from an apprentice's perspective, that in 3 years' time I'll have gained my degree and I'll have 4 years experience, and by that stage I'll be ready and in a position to straight away hopefully enroll onto the APC program and gain my chartership. So yeah,
that's an important aspect actually. Is I'm not sure who on the call understands the RICS APC route, but the APC process to get chartered is writing about what your experience is and how you can achieve that level of dependability and critical thinking for what you do on a day-to-day basis. So allowing Danielle to kind of write about that now and reflect on how she does her day-to-day work is putting her in good speed to get that APC through the door quicker than it would be from starting from scratch straight from university, where you're having to go and work, you're having to gain the experience, you're having to understand how you would write about a tender process, for example, where you've already had that experience. So I would expect as soon as Danielle finishes her APC that that she'll be fast tracked to getting through her APC relatively quickly, and a lot quicker than somebody would be had they went through a traditional route without any work experience. So if you can flick on to the next slide, David, I'll kind of touch on about, well, I've told you about the expectations that Arcadis had, and what is the reality now that we've had that year experience under our belt with Danielle and how she's progressing. So as I kind of touched on, I'm not sure if Danielle's exceptionally good at what she does, which I would imagine it probably is, but she is like learning and developing a lot quicker than we initially thought. as I said, Danielle's had a good range of experience within the construction industry to start with. I think it may be a bit more difficult somebody from high school coming in. I'm just trying to be open and honest as possible, that trying to get that mindset of somebody from high school into the construction industry, where it's their first job, first responsibility, you probably will need a bit more time and patience with them. So always keep that in the back of your mind, that you will need somebody that's dedicated enough, a mentor that's motivated to get them through that, and be on to them not day to day, but on a weekly basis, just have an hour's catch up, even a 10-minute catch up, to see if they can address anything. I know in Arcadis there's a lot of aspects that you need to do for your appraisal every year. So there may be, if it was in Arcadis, somebody would maybe say, right, can you be the mentor for Danielle getting her through university? That's going to be on your appraisal and we're going to assess it. We don't want it to be a tick box exercise, which I've kind of got there in the slides, because that just makes it somebody's doing it because they're forced to do it. You really need somebody that's motivated to help them get through it. As I said, if you have somebody that's going to get them through it, they'll spend the time, they'll spend the dedication to get them through it, and they'll be on to them all the time to make sure that they're doing what they should be doing. The reality as well about high quality submissions. I mean, Danielle goes away in her own time, does a lot of stuff herself, and the good thing about that is I can just reflect on it and just kind of point her in the right direction. The coursework that she's doing, normally we would just expect the student to kind of go away, look at the coursework, provide an analysis on it, and then submit something. Whereas now we're actually tailoring it, the submission, and say, right, we can talk about this in your work experience, or we could maybe give you this kind of experience which you can touch on to address that aspect, for example. So it's a good way to understand the submission that they're given, and kind of tailor it to high quality aspects as well. I mean, I don't exactly do the coursework, but if there is something that I think, you know what, you could maybe go and read about that, or you could speak to somebody in the office that's dealing with that issue just now and shadow them to see what they're doing, to understand what you can benefit from that and understanding a bit more. Yeah, the mentors and senior staff require dedicated time to educate and guide apprentices through certain tasks. I've kind of touched on that a few times now, because I think it's very important that you do really need somebody to spend a couple of hours every week just kind of explaining what a tender process is, understanding different procurement routes, and why you're choosing to go down that route, or whatever you want to do on how you measure stuff. I think the benefits of this apprenticeship is funded. So I'm not actually sure about the payments, but I don't think there is any payments for putting apprentices through this course. It's all free. But the downside of that is you probably need to have somebody in the organisation to spend a bit of time to update them on work related aspects. But as I said, it's only an hour or two every week, and once they get going with their work experience, they're learning as they go. So if you are prepared enough and you put in a good plan in place, then you won't really need to speak to them that much, because they'll develop themselves. The time and patience is sorry, my headset just got out there. Hopefully you can stop me.
Yeah, we can.
Yep. The time and patience is required. Can't simply expect apprentices to know everything straight away. As I said, Danielle's progressing quicker than when we would have imagined or we would have expected from somebody just starting an apprenticeship course. So if, as I said earlier on about stupid questions, you want them to ask as many questions. You want them to pester you for the sake of 2 minutes explaining something. It's a lot better than them sitting away for an hour or two trying to get their head around something that they don't have a clue about. And everyone's been in that position. You can't expect them to know everything. So please, if you do take on a candidate, support them through it. Don't let them down, because not only are you going to get a candidate who'll struggle, lose their confidence, but you're just going to get somebody that's not confident in what they're doing at the end of it, and you've effectively wasted a few years of their life and your kind of role as well as getting them through that and an asset to your organisation. Requirement to find relevant projects to allow apprentices to gain experience for coursework submission. As I said, we're quite fortunate when Arcadis, we've got a range of different projects where we can chop and change Danielle's input and shadowing of different members to get the relevant experience based on the coursework criteria. But as I've said, Graham, I think submitting the future coursework so you can understand what they'll be looking for in different semesters. You can look at your pipeline and understand what is there. I mean, we won't expect Danielle to go away and undertake a project on her own accord, although she has progressed into that stage, so you never know, she might be. But in reality, we would never have expected that right at the start anyway. So it will be just shadowing somebody, well understanding, and then they do take on the tasks that are normally time consuming. Undertaking a measure on a floor plan, for example, a senior member of staff doing that is time consuming. You're taking them away from stuff that's more kind of cost efficient on other projects, for example. So they are a great asset to the team, and they can support you as well as you supporting them. There are similarities to the part-time and full-time degrees, however, a more hands-on approach from the firm to support the progress with the candidate. So as I said, you either pay substantial fees for a student to go through the course, or you get the grant funding for free and you spend a bit of time and get a member of your staff to get them through it. And as I said, I think it'll offset itself in the long run, where the student and the mentor will benefit each other. The student undertaking tasks that the mentor doesn't want to do or takes too long to do, and equally you're encouraging the student to get through it as well. And then, as I kind of touched on before, it's a great quick route to allow apprentices to seek professional membership with the RSCS or whoever they want to go with. The RSCS chartership is you have to kind of write about your experience and what you've done, different levels. So level 1, 2, and 3. Level 1, understanding what you do. Level 2, doing the work, and level 3, advising a client. So being able to tick those boxes straight away, especially from a level 1 and 2 perspective, where Danielle would be working on a tender, doing measurements and advising the client on what a cost plan would value is all allowing her to track that experience and input into her submission as such, and fast track the input, where you don't have to go away and spend another 2 or 3 years to get your chartership. You can probably fast track yourself through that. And before we move on to the next slide, is there anything from yourself, Danielle, that you wanted to jump on that I've kind of skimmed over?
No, nothing.
Okay. Moving on to the next slide then, David, please. Yeah, so these are some of the benefits that I've probably touched on a few of them already, but some of the benefits that we've had from the apprenticeship course and Danielle's involvement. So we're aware of, what I thought we were aware of Danielle's level of knowledge before she started. She's obviously progressed a lot quicker than we had. So if you, for example, if you did take somebody on from high school looking to the apprenticeship course, you should be aware of what level they're at, and that's probably right at the bottom where they don't know anything. So you can have that awareness in what they do, and you go and give them a procurement report to review. You know that's not feasible because they don't know anything about that, and you can set up your kind of program to help them get through that as well. Develop our own talent by tailoring relevant work experience and knowledge to Arcadis types of projects and processes. I've kind of touched on this already, but we're able to give Danielle the processes and software that Arcadis use for the projects to allow her to understand them, how to understand how we take off measures, capture the data, and then report that to the client. Where this speeds up the process, where in the future we will be confident enough to allow Danielle to run away and do the projects herself with no issues, because she's got that experience by shadowing people and understanding how we want her to set out a cost plan, how we want her to do a tender report, etc. Delegating basic jobs to an apprentice allows them to learn and take responsibility while freeing up time of the more experienced staff. As I kind of touched on earlier as well, it gives Danielle the responsibility to do the time-consuming tasks that you would expect a graduate or apprentice to do, and it frees up time for our more experienced staff to spend their time on more fee-efficient or fee-earning jobs, to save them doing a task that isn't earning any money, allowing us to allow them to get the experience, but also benefiting the senior members of staff as well, in line with that. The community benefits for project tendering, which strengthens the Arcadis brand. We had a bid recently for a project where they asked about the benefits we have for supporting the next generation, and we were able to reflect on the bid that we were supporting 2 apprentices through the Heriot-Watt apprenticeship course, as well as having another couple of students through the full-time course. So we were able to reflect on that to show that we're giving back to the community and in Arcadis are really good for putting people through their studies, and then helping us to retain them afterwards as well. And as I talk about staff retention, as the graduates going through university tend to feel as an integral part of the team and remain within the firm upon graduating, because a reason I'm at Arcadis for 13 years is I've built up a good relationship with a lot of colleagues and a lot of people in the organisation out with my office, and I kind of want to give back to the firm that's put a lot of time and investment into me. So I don't want to go hunting for money, which some people tend to do. I'm about loyal to Arcadis now, and maybe they've got a grasp of me, I don't know, but I just feel like they've supported me, so why not give back to them? And Danielle's been at the company for 11 years. I would hope she does the same, even if she does get some lucrative offers elsewhere. So again, there it says save on costs for recruitment. We're hoping to get you understand the level that you're getting, and you can train them up as you want. I think if you were to replace an apprentice is a bit easier, because you know the level they're at and what they need to get to. But if you go for a senior member of staff, for example, you don't know how reliable they're going to be. Are they going to work late to finish a job, or are they going to finish at 5:30 and leave something unfinished where the client's not too happy, for example? So yeah, it saves on recruitment as well, as you're training them up, and then you're hopefully retaining them as well, so that you don't have to go down that expensive route where you pay 10 grand to get somebody in through the door that's unreliable. Any other benefits from yourself, Danielle? I think I've probably covered a lot from yourself. But anything else in particular that you're really enjoying about the apprenticeship or anything?
Yeah, to be honest, I'm enjoying it, all of it, to be fair. The programme has been really intensive. I would say is not to underestimate the amount of time. So even though it's 1 day a week, effectively it is still a full-time course. You know, we're learning full time. We're learning while we're at work. We're writing up portfolios. You know, I'm working on it in the evening. You know, sometimes at the weekends. I've got a young family as well. So definitely not to underestimate how challenging it can be. But yeah, it has been really rewarding. I was really happy with my grades in the first year, and I'm, you know, committed and now really keen to just get on with the second year. I'm excited about this year as well, so I am really enjoying it. But yeah, definitely don't underestimate how intensive it can be.
Yeah, I always remember when I went along to the initial mentor kind of introduction meeting at the start of the first year. And I remember a few mentors that probably hadn't been to university for a while asking some strange questions about how much time should we spend in work day on their coursework. And I think we allocate Danielle normally half a day a week to allow her to kind of look at her coursework and try and tailor that to not just kind of allow her to do it on her own day-to-day basis, but it gives her the opportunity to reflect on that as well, so that she can spend a bit of time in the work and it's not all in her own time doing the stuff. So you do have to kind of give them that sense as well that they are working most of the time. They are spending a day wherein they're in class, but you do also need to give them a half a day or to a day a week also, where they reflect on what they've done to allow them to suit that in the coursework. Again, somebody asked the questions, how long should they spend? And I think Graham maybe said 4 hours a week they would expect the firm to allow them to do it. And then I think they asked, okay, so they should only spend 4 hours a week on it. But that's not the case at all. It's 4 hours within work. You would expect a student or a candidate to go and spend away in their own time and do their coursework. If they're only spending 4 hours a week on something, it's not enough even for the full-time course. But the good thing about it is they're writing about stuff they do on a day-to-day basis, so they don't have to do that research. They can reflect on what they've done and the lessons learned they've had from that and what they've done. So I think the good thing about this is the coursework's all reflective. It's not going away, read a book, read a publication and then write about it. It's what do you actually do on your day-to-day basis. So as I said, that reflective nature leads in well to understanding how you're undertaking a job, and what you're doing to achieve that, and understanding why you're doing it. Whereas if I've been guilty of myself, where you read a book, you give an answer and then you forget about it. whereas this one is actually reflecting on what you do, and it's constantly improving what you're doing and why you're doing it. And if you do mess up, which everyone's guilty of, I mean, I mess up on a daily basis, no doubt, and the best thing to do is learn from those mistakes. So it's a great initiative to have. So if we can flick on to, I think, the last slide. Yeah, so this is the kind of projects that we've had. So I'm in the hotel sector, although I'm doing a kind of range of projects just now, mainly probably because of COVID. Whereas both the Charlotte Square Hotel, Kimpton Charlotte Square in Edinburgh, as well as the George Street Hotel in Edinburgh. So you're maybe familiar with them, but they're going for a refurbishment. I was a QS on both, but I've kind of highlighted the PM roles that we would expect Danielle to kind of shadow and then maybe do, as well as some of the QS aspects that she can help me with, so she gets an understanding of the QS side of things as well. So Danielle's a lot better than me at managing a program, thankfully, so she was able to take the lead in that. The change control process, she initially shadowed that, but now she's chasing design team members for feedback, actually speaking to them on a daily basis and collating that and understanding why we're making decisions on certain variations, etc. Started off chairing, I think Danielle, you probably chaired the meetings and did the minutes right from the start anyway, so
Yeah.
that was quite good as well. That I think it's a well-known thing in the industry that everyone hates doing minutes, and it's a thankless task sometimes where some people don't even read them. So it was great for Danielle to spend that time and do them as well and understand the situations on the project itself and understanding where we are and where we need to get to. And then the general kind of admin tasks of the PM role about reviewing certifications, certifying practical completion or sectional completion for each area, and understanding how the contract works as well and what she needs to do. And then you've got the QS aspects is where she'll shadow me. I mean, Danielle's a PM, so we wouldn't expect her to fully do the QS stuff, but she has been shadowing us and kind of understanding why we undertake the measures we do for the work and how we agree project variations and the associated costs that come with that, and also the contract clauses. I think the good thing about COVID was we were able to reflect in the contract to find out, right, there's a problem, how do we resolve that? And we could do that step by step to understand the implications of that and how we protect the client and where we're at and stuff. So no, it's, as I said, it's different projects. I mean, this was during construction, so there was other projects that Danielle's been shadowing other colleagues on where the projects are maybe at the procurement stage, pre-contract. So as I said, you maybe have to map out what projects you've got in the pipeline to allow your candidate to supervise you or undertake certain work. And you'll be surprised how quickly they do develop. Once they do work over and over again, they will take it on themselves and they will progress quicker than you think. I think that's the last slide from ourselves. As Graham kind of touched on as well, I'm more than happy to take any questions, or my details are there if anyone wants a quick chat or an understanding a bit more depth how we handle that and how we get our candidates through. I'm more than happy to do it. As I kind of mentioned, I did a part-time course where I did feel like I was isolated sometimes, and I also did my chartership on my own as well without any much support. So I know the stress levels of getting through it, and I'm more than happy to support anyone that has any questions, even if it's a questions on candidates that are in your own firm that you're needing support and how you can tailor them to get through it. So any questions, more than happy to take them as well.
Brilliant. Thanks, Craig. Thanks, Danielle. Thanks, Graham. No, we're just a wee bit over, but listen, I've still got time. If anybody would like to ask a question.
Apologies for that.
No worries. No worries. Listen, it was great to get. It was really great to get that employer and mentor and student perspective. It was really good. We don't often get the opportunity to do that, but I really appreciate you sharing that. Gavin's got his hand up. Gavin, hi. Would you like to ask a question?
Yeah, hi. I'll just throw this out to the three of you. I'm currently completing a HNC in construction management. I'm interested in starting a GA from this September or any time after that. But I'm not from a construction background. I'm struggling to find an employer. I've contacted companies directly and I keep checking apprenticeships.scot website, but I'm not having any much luck. So I'm just wondering if any of you have any advice.
Yeah, I think you're it's quite a tricky position just now with a lot of firms, unfortunately, especially with a lot of staff being on furlough leave. Arcadis have got a lot of staff still on furlough leave due to a lot of projects being put on hold. I'm not sure, Graham's probably better at advising this, but there's a lot of careers fairs and stuff that I'm sure Heriot-Watt do, where firms would come along, explain to them, and you'll be surprised that I think there will be a boom in the industry soon enough. It's just, unfortunately, I'm not sure we're at the current situation of it. I know that Arcadis aren't employing just now, which is maybe something you don't want to hear. But there will be firms where they are thriving on COVID because they don't, their projects aren't on site. They're pre-contract stage. So I think if you just keep searching, there, like I've seen on LinkedIn, go on LinkedIn,
sure,
get your online networking updated, try and pester people on LinkedIn. Just Google, I mean, even Google Arcadis if you wanted to see who works there and say any jobs going, or maybe not as direct as that, but just talk about yourself and like give them the like kind of the hints that I've gave you today about the benefits of putting an apprenticeship through it, and I'm sure somebody will be available to take you on.
Sure.
It's just you have to keep looking and get your
Yes. Thanks for that, Craig. That's good advice, and you know, thanks to Gavin for your enthusiasm for this programme and for coming along. And I'm sure you'll get there at some point, and we'll be here. But we do need to have an employer on board to recruit you and to get you through the programme. But I think one of Craig's slides, I noted that he had dedication or dedicated apprentices was a key ingredient for success. So it seems to me that you've got this by coming along today, and we'd be pleased to look at your application at some point.
Yeah, Gavin, if you search my name on LinkedIn, connect with me. As I said, I deal with RICS Matrix quite a lot, and I'm speaking to various firms. So if I do see an opportunity, I'll get in touch with you. As kind of Graham just mentioned there, your proactive nature to join these sessions will put any employer in good light of how capable you are and how willing you are. And as Graham kind of touched on there, we need students to be asking us questions, not somebody that's just going to sit there and wait for it to come to them. So for you to have that proactive nature, I'm sure you'll find something soon enough if you just get your name out there on LinkedIn and stuff.
Perfect. Thank you very much for the advice.
No worries.
Thanks, Craig. Thanks, Graham.
While people are thinking, I'll just say something about entry requirements, which I didn't actually mention earlier on. Now, it is a degree programme, and we have broad equivalents to our on-campus entry requirements, but we do look at a broad range of candidates based on their experiences and based on not just what hires or academic qualifications they've got, but if going back in this point about what makes a good employer, what makes a good apprentice, that dedication is a key focus, a key thing, and what makes a good employer is not dissimilar to what makes a good apprentice for the university. And it is that dedication, it is that focus and that desire to sort of develop your career.
Yep. Derek's just dropped out. I think it's just for Craig and Danielle. I think you touched on a wee bit, but we'll ask you anyway. So, just in terms of the time you spend together as mentor and student, I suppose just can you give an indication of how much work time, hours a week you need to allocate?
I'd definitely say it varies week to week, doesn't it, Craig? Because some weeks we, have 2 hours together on a Wednesday afternoon to go through a certain item, say, and we, have a chat and Craig will talk me through something. And then other times, this week I've been working on a surveying assessment, which is one of the traditional courses, so it's not a work-based one. So this week we've not had much time together, and we've just I've just been getting along with something else in my when I can. But yeah, I think week by week it is generally about at least 2 hours a week or 3 hours a week?
Yeah, you definitely need to dedicate some time. Weeks where I don't need to speak to Danielle because she's away doing her coursework. She understands where she needs to get to. I think at the start of the semester, it's obviously vital to map out what they're going to do, how they're going to address the topics on the coursework, and where they're going to get that experience from. So I definitely dedicate at least 2 hours a week to catching up. So me and Danielle normally catch up on Wednesday at 3 o'clock. So I know if somebody tries to get a meeting, then I can say, I'm sorry, I'm busy. And yeah, as I said, it depends on where you're at. I mean, the savings that you get from not having to pay to put the candidate through university, you do have to allocate some of that resource to get them through it. And
yep.
I spend time in me and Danielle have had catch ups at 7 o'clock at night before on she's done her submission, and we're looking through it and stuff. So I mean, as I said, you do have to find a dedicated individual to get them through it. I don't expect Craig. Yeah, I don't expect people to maybe have a catch up with certain individuals. Maybe somebody's a bit more personal about their time, but at least dedicating time, whether that's during work or after work, you definitely need to find time for them. And as I said, 2 hours a week. I mean, 5 hours a week you're eating lunch. Surely you can spend half an hour of that speaking to a candidate and getting them through it, and just trying to remember back to what you were like when you were doing university and the knowledge you had to get them through it. So yeah, cool. I'm speaking on behalf of all probably students, but please don't neglect them.
Good stuff.
No worries. But yeah, as I said, if anyone did have any other further questions about how they want how they can support their candidates through it, feel free to message me. I'm more than happy to take any calls or support anyone through it.
Great, that's great. Thank you. I think that might be us for the questions, Graham. So I just before this, just well, in case any last one come through, just if anybody else did have any questions, if you want to get in touch with Craig, just ask us, and we can certainly put you in touch with Craig. Or if you get any questions for either Graham or on graduate apprenticeships, or specifically on the construction built environment course, then please just email into the email address which is on the screen, which is ga@hwu.ac.uk, and we'll get back to you as quickly as we can.
Yeah, I'm happy to pick up on any questions about the programme, the courses, what to expect when you enrol within the school. So anything that I can help with there, I'm happy to do so. Perfect.
Listen, and just before we close up, I'd just like to say another thanks to Craig and Danielle, and obviously yourself, Graham, for taking time today to give us a great presentation on not only the programme, but also just it was great to hear that perspective from an employer, a mentor, and a student. So thanks again.
Yeah, I just thank our guests for that.
Yeah, no worries at all. As I said, I know the stress of being a student, and I know how much is required to get them through it. So I'm more than happy to share insight and tips and techniques of how to support them and how to get them through it.
Brilliant. Okay, thanks, folks. With that, sorry, Danielle, were you going to say something?
I was just saying thank you.
Welcome. Thanks. And I suppose with that, I think we'll just close the call there.